Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Cleveland Browns organization is in absolute chaos right now, and former NFL MVP Cam Newton just threw gasoline on an already raging fire. What we witnessed this past weekend wasn't just a controversial coaching decision. It was potentially career-ending moment that has fans, analysts, and players questioning everything about Kevin Stefanski's future with the franchise. Buckle up because this story has more twists than a soap opera, and the fallout is just getting started. Picture this scene. You're in the stands at the stadium, your team is driving down the field with a chance to tie the game, and your quarterback is having the performance of his career. 4 touchdowns already on the board, over 364 passing yards. He's absolutely torching the defense like a hot knife through butter. This is the moment every fan lives for, the kind of clutch situation where legends are born and heroes are made. And then, in the most baffling decision you could possibly imagine, the head coach pulls that same quarterback out of the game. Not because he's injured, not because he's struggling, but because of some pre-planned strategy that makes absolutely zero sense to anyone watching. That's exactly what happened to the Cleveland Browns, and Cam Newton is absolutely livid about it. Newton didn't mince words when he addressed this situation on his platform. He called Kevin Stefanski's decision to bench Shedeur during the final drive against the Tennessee Titans not just questionable or controversial, but a fireable offense. Let that sink in for a moment. A fireable offense. Cam Newton, who knows a thing or two about playing quarterback in high-pressure situations, believes this single decision should cost Stefanski his job. And honestly, after breaking down what actually happened, it's hard to disagree with him. The context here is absolutely critical. This wasn't some garbage time decision in a blowout loss. This wasn't the fourth quarter of a meaningless game at the end of a lost season. This was a tied game situation where everything was on the line. The Browns needed a 2-point conversion to stay in the game, and they had a quarterback who was playing out of his mind. Shedeur was in the zone, that magical place where every throw feels effortless and every decision seems to work out perfectly. He had already thrown 4 touchdowns, absolutely carving up the Titans' defense like a Thanksgiving turkey. By every conceivable metric, he was the hottest player on the field and exactly the person you'd want with the ball in his hands. But Kevin Stefanski had other plans that apparently involved sabotaging his own team's chances of winning. Cam Newton didn't hold back in his analysis, and his passion on this topic is absolutely palpable. He pointed out something that should make every Browns fan sick to their stomach. The Cleveland Browns are quite possibly the only team in the entire National Football League that would pull their starting quarterback out of the game in that situation. Think about that for a second. 32 teams in the NFL, and only one of them would make such a mind-bogglingly terrible decision. That's not just bad coaching, that's organizational dysfunction at its finest. Newton went even further, suggesting that this decision raised serious questions about whether Stefanski actually wanted to win the game. And you know what? That's not just hot take territory for clicks and views. That's a legitimate question that deserves an answer. When you pull your best player off the field during the most critical moment of the game, when that player is having a career performance, what other conclusion can people draw? It doesn't look like winning is the priority. It looks like something else entirely is going on behind the scenes. The optics of this situation are absolutely terrible for Stefanski. Cam Newton articulated what everyone watching was thinking. It seemed like the Browns coach didn't want Shedeur to be the hero. He didn't want the young quarterback to have his moment in the spotlight, to cement his legacy with a game-winning drive that would be replayed on highlight reels for years to come. Instead, Stefanski opted for some alternative plan that ultimately failed, costing his team the game and leaving everyone scratching their heads in confusion and frustration. Now, Cam Newton made an excellent point about the circumstances that might have made this decision slightly more understandable. If Shedeur had been having a mediocre game, if he'd thrown multiple interceptions, if the offense had been sputtering and struggling all day, then maybe, just maybe, you could understand trying something different. But that wasn't remotely close to what was happening. Sanders was having the best game of his career by a country mile. 4 touchdowns. Over 364 yards. He was surgically dissecting the Titans' defense with precision and confidence. This wasn't a struggling quarterback who needed to be rescued. This was a star player in the midst of a breakout performance. That's what makes this decision so utterly indefensible. Stefanski didn't just make a questionable call. He made a decision that flies in the face of basic football logic and common sense. Cam Newton called it embarrassing, but then immediately clarified that embarrassing doesn't even begin to cover it. It's beyond embarrassing. It's the kind of decision that makes you question everything about a coach's judgment, game management skills, and understanding of the moment. For Cleveland Browns fans, this is just another gut punch in a season full of disappointment and frustration. Cam Newton acknowledged how difficult it must be to support this team right now, especially for those fans who were actually at the stadium witnessing this debacle unfold in real time. Imagine spending your hard-earned money on tickets, driving to the stadium, cheering your team on all game long, watching your quarterback put on an absolute clinic, and then seeing your coach inexplicably pull him from the game at the worst possible moment. That's not just disappointing. That's the kind of thing that makes fans question their loyalty and wonder why they even bother investing their emotions in this team. The immediate aftermath of the game only made things worse. Sometimes coaches make mistakes in the heat of the moment, and the best thing they can do is own up to it afterward. A simple, "I made the wrong call and I take full responsibility," can go a long way toward diffusing a tense situation. But that's not what Kevin Stefanski did. Instead of showing any remorse or second-guessing his decision, he doubled down on it during his post-game press conference.
Practicing football, which he hasn't done in over a year. So
pulling Shedeur Sanders was intentional, planned, and based on prior discussions. Stefanski's comments were absolutely stunning in their tone deafness. He essentially admitted that if Sanders had stayed in the game, the Browns would have won and Sanders would have been the hero. Read that again. The coach acknowledged that keeping his quarterback in the game would have resulted in a victory, but he chose not to do it anyway. That's not just bad coaching. That's actively working against your team's best interests. It's the kind of statement that makes you wonder if there's some personal issue or power struggle happening behind closed doors. When Stefanski was asked about his decision-making process, he maintained that it was something the team had discussed extensively, a scenario they'd talked about frequently. He felt confident in the decision, so he went with it. There was no hint of regret, no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, the situation called for adapting to what was actually happening on the field rather than sticking to some predetermined plan. That stubbornness, that refusal to adjust based on performance and circumstances, is exactly the kind of coaching rigidity that gets teams into trouble. Shedeur Sanders himself didn't hide his disappointment when speaking to the media after the game. You could hear the frustration in his voice as he talked about how he was the one moving the ball down the field all game long. He believed, rightfully so, that if he'd been given the chance to finish what he started, he would have delivered the victory. When asked directly if he wished he had the ball in his hands for that crucial moment, Sanders gave an answer that was both diplomatic and telling. He said that whenever he's on the field, he always wants the ball in his hands. That's the mentality of a winner, of someone who rises to the occasion in pressure situations. And what a performance it was. Even though the Browns ultimately lost the game, Shedeur Sanders put up numbers that will go down in the record books. He posted the highest combination of touchdowns, passing yards, and rushing yards in a single game this entire season, 4 touchdowns through the air. More total yardage than the entire opposing team managed to accumulate. These aren't just good numbers. These are elite, franchise quarterback numbers. This was the kind of performance that should have been rewarded with the opportunity to finish the job, to lead his team to victory, and cement his status as the future of the franchise. Instead, he had to watch from the sidelines as his coach's questionable decision cost the team a winnable game. Cam Newton's criticism goes beyond just this one game, though. He's touching on something much bigger and more systemic about the Browns organization. When a team consistently makes decisions that defy logic and seem to work against their own best interests, it raises questions about the entire operation. Is there proper communication between coaches and players? Is there a coherent game plan that everyone understands and buys into? Are decisions being made based on what gives the team the best chance to win, or are there other factors at play? These are the kinds of questions that keep general managers up at night, and they're exactly the kinds of questions that lead to coaching changes. The pressure on Kevin Stefanski has been building for weeks now, but this latest controversy has turned up the heat to an almost unbearable level. Fans are calling for his head on social media. Sports talk radio in Cleveland is absolutely melting down with angry callers demanding change. National analysts are piling on, questioning not just this decision, but Stefanski's entire body of work this season. Even former players like Cam Newton are using their platforms to say that this is a fireable offense. When you've lost the fans, lost the media, and are losing the locker room, there's really nowhere left to go. The writing is on the wall, and that writing says that Kevin Stefanski's time in Cleveland is rapidly running out. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for Stefanski either. The Browns are in the middle of a season where expectations were reasonably high, and they're failing to meet them. Every game matters, and every loss feels like a wasted opportunity. This isn't a rebuilding year where you can afford to make mistakes and learn from them. This is supposed to be a competitive season, and the coach is making decisions that actively hurt the team's chances of success. What makes this situation even more combustible is that it's not happening in a vacuum. The Browns have been dealing with quarterback controversy and instability for years. It's been a revolving door at the position, with the organization never quite finding that franchise quarterback who can elevate the entire team. When Shedeur came in and started showing real promise, performing at a high level and giving fans hope for the future, it felt like maybe finally the Browns had found their guy. And then the coach pulls him from the game at the most critical moment. You couldn't script a better way to undermine confidence and create dysfunction if you tried. The fallout from this decision extends beyond just one game or one season. Young quarterbacks are fragile, especially when it comes to confidence and trust in their coaching staff. When a quarterback delivers a career performance and then gets benched in the clutch moment, that sends a message. It says that no matter how well you play, no matter how much you produce, the coach might not have your back when it matters most. That's the kind of thing that can damage the relationship between a player and an organization, potentially causing long-term harm that extends well beyond this season. Cam Newton understands this better than most people. He's been in situations where coaching decisions impacted his performance and his career trajectory. He knows what it's like to carry a team on your shoulders, to put up big numbers, and then feel like the organization isn't fully committed to your success. That personal experience informs his passionate response to what happened with Shedeur, and it's why his criticism carries so much weight. The question now becomes, what happens next? Does Kevin Stefanski survive this controversy? Can he recover from making such a publicly criticized decision? Or is this the tipping point that finally forces the Browns' ownership and front office to make a change? History suggests that coaches rarely survive this level of backlash, especially when the criticism is coming from so many different directions simultaneously. When fans are furious, media members are questioning your competence, and former players are calling for you to be fired, that's usually the beginning of the end. The Browns organization is going to have to make a decision, and they're going to have to make it soon. If Stefanski somehow manages to keep his job for the rest of this season, it's hard to imagine him returning next year. The trust has been broken, the fan base has turned against him. Players are clearly frustrated, even if they're being diplomatic in public. This is the kind of situation that doesn't improve with time. It festers and grows worse until the inevitable change is finally made. Some might argue that firing a coach mid-season creates instability and doesn't give the team the best chance to succeed, but there's a counter-argument that keeping a coach who has lost the locker room and the fan base creates even more instability. When players stop believing in their coach, when they see decisions being made that don't make sense, it affects their effort and preparation. Why give maximum effort for a coach you don't believe in? Why sacrifice your body on every play when you think the coaching staff is setting you up to fail? The Cleveland Browns are at a crossroads right now, and the path forward is becoming clearer by the day. Change is coming. The only question is whether it happens now or at the end of the season. Either way, Kevin Stefanski's tenure in Cleveland appears to be entering its final chapter, and this controversy with Shedeur will likely be remembered as the moment when his fate was sealed. Cam Newton has thrown down the gauntlet with his fiery comments, and the football world is watching to see how the Browns respond. This isn't just about one game or one decision anymore. It's about the direction of the franchise, the development of a young quarterback with enormous potential, and whether the Browns are serious about winning or content to keep making the same mistakes that have defined this organization for decades. The fans deserve better. Shedeur Sanders deserves better. And frankly, the entire Cleveland Browns organization deserves better than a coach who pulls his best player off the field during the most critical moment of the game. So what's it going to be, Cleveland? Are you going to make the tough decision that needs to be made, or are you going to keep trotting out the same leadership that continues to find new and creative ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and everyone is waiting to see what happens next in this unfolding drama. One thing is certain, though. This story is far from over, and the next few weeks are going to be absolutely fascinating to watch as this situation continues to develop and the pressure on Kevin Stefanski reaches its inevitable conclusion. So there you have it, folks. The Cleveland Browns coaching controversy that has the entire NFL talking. What do you think about Cam Newton's assessment? Is Kevin Stefanski's decision to bench Shedeur Sanders truly a fireable offense? Should the Browns make a change now or wait until the end of the season? And what does this mean for the future of Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because we want to hear from you. This is the kind of story that gets people fired up, and we know you've got opinions. While you're down there, smash that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you never miss another update on this developing story. Trust us, you're going to want to follow along as this situation continues to unfold. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.